Alright, so welcome to another video. This week I'm going to be sharing a simple strategy for studying and analyzing your favorite music. Now, the method I'm going to be sharing is the same one that I used to create the template for my last video. And it doesn't require any sheet music. All you'll need is a computer, an MP3 of the music you want to analyze, and a little bit of patience. Alright, so first things first, we need to upload the audio that we're going to be studying into your DAW of choice. Now, I use an older version of Cubase, but in theory, any DAW that you want to use should work. And in order to avoid getting a copy strike on this video, I'm going to be using the audio from one of my original pieces, Modertreya, which you can listen to on my second channel, Tabletop Composer Studios. Now, once you've uploaded the audio for your track, you want to add a marker track to the project. A marker track is a very useful tool that allows you to just simply mark different points in the timeline of your project window. In this project, we are going to use the markers to break up the music into different chunks or sections. And to do this, just start from the beginning of your audio track and listen until you hear the first major shift in the music, or just until you feel like a new section has started. When this happens, pause the track and add a marker to signify the start of a new section. Then just continue this process until you have found every major shift in the music. Now, don't worry about being too formal with this step. You're not actually trying to find the quote-unquote correct number of sections in the music. You're just trying to break up the music into a couple more manageable sections. So, as you do it, trust your gut and just think, where does the music feel different to you? And where do you think the shifts happen? So, once you're done and you've broken the whole piece into a bunch of more manageable, shorter sections, you're ready to start analyzing, which is where you're going to be needing that patience I talked about earlier. Because at this part of the process, you're going to listen to each individual section on repeat while trying to answer a series of questions. Now, the specific questions that you want to ask will depend on two things. First and foremost, it's going to depend on what you're trying to learn. After all, your goal for analyzing the music is going to inform the things that you listen for. But just as important is the amount of music theory that you actually know. Because music theory is going to be the language used to both identify and name the things you're actually looking for. Now, if you don't know a lot of music theory, don't worry. In just a little bit, I'm going to share some of my favorite beginner-friendly questions to help get you started. However, spending even just a little bit of effort studying music theory will help you get so much more out of this approach, for reasons that we'll cover later in this video. But for now, let's just focus on the most important questions that are going to form the foundation of this strategy. And number one is, how many layers can you hear in the music? What are they? Number two is, which instruments are being used to play each layer? How do they impact the mood or vibe? And then finally, number three is just kind of a catch-all. This is where you're going to write down any notes on things that you noticed and want to make sure you remember. Now, these three questions form a simple but very powerful starting point that doesn't require a lot of music theory knowledge, but can still help you learn a ton about the overall structure and arrangement strategies that are used in your favorite pieces. In fact, these are the only three questions that I used to create the template for my Skyrim video. However, if you are looking to do a real deep dive into the music, you can get even more specific with the questions you're trying to answer. Some additional options that you can consider are, what is the key signature that's being used? What is the tempo? What kind of harmony is being used? Is it major, minor, modal? What is the harmonic rhythm? And which theme or melody is being used in each section? Is it the A theme, the B theme, the C theme, etc., etc., etc.? So, as I mentioned earlier, the more confident you are with music theory, the deeper you can actually dive into each of these analyses. If you're interested, you can purchase a worksheet for this video on my website for just $5, and it includes the breakdown of this entire process, as well as a list of dozens of different questions that you can use to help explore the pieces that you're studying. If you're looking to brush up on your music theory knowledge, you can also check out my textbook on film composing, which will cover everything you need. You can also check out any of the 4 free classes that I offer on my website. But for now, let's just stick to our 3 primary questions. Armed with these questions in mind, you'll start listening to the very first section of your music on a loop. And as you listen, try to answer each question to the best of your abilities, starting with, how many layers can you hear? Is there a melody? Is there a bass line? Are there chords, percussion, etc.? Don't be afraid to go into a little detail here if you'd like. Where is each layer situated? Is the counter melody above or below the primary melody? Things like that. As you identify each layer, do your very best to identify which instruments are being used to play each line. Again, experience is going to be your friend here, but even if you don't recognize the sound of a specific instrument, just give it your best shot. What do you think it could be? You're not doing this for a grade, so it's fine if you're not 100% accurate. The goal is to just help find inspiration and to learn by listening to your favorite pieces. For example, in Mot de Tre, the very first section lasts around 34 seconds. Well, at least that's where I placed the first marker. After listening to this section on repeat, I was able to identify at least 4 different layers, some ethereal pads, and 3 different motivic ideas, which sound like ostinati, or short repetitive rhythmic ideas. Now, the pads sound like they're being played by a synth, while motif A sounds like it could either be a harp or a dulcimer. Honestly, it's been a little while since I wrote this, so I can't actually remember which one I'm using. But motifs B and C both definitely sound like they're being played by a marimba. Once you've identified all of the different layers that you can hear and taken a guess at which instruments are being used, the very last question is our catch-all. What did you notice that you thought was worth noting? Maybe there was a lot of reverb being used. Or maybe you picked up on a way that this section is related to the previous one, or possibly helped set up the next one. Again, having experience in music theory will be helpful, but it's not necessary. I mean, after all, everyone is capable of finding things that they like or notice in the music that they enjoy. And that's all this really is. You're taking notes on the things that you noticed, thought were cool, and that you want to try out for yourself. Now, once you feel that you have answered each of these questions to the best of your abilities, move on to the next section and repeat this process until you have analyzed the entire piece. When you're done, revisit your notes and make a list of everything that you want to remember or try out yourself. This could be a specific orchestral texture, it could be a new strategy for transitioning between sections, or a new combination of instruments you hadn't thought of before. Really, it could be anything. This is the moment where you want to write down all of the coolest things you heard while analyzing the music. And it's really that simple. If you want to move a step further and start creating templates from your analysis, then that's going to require a few additional steps, but nothing too crazy. Templates are just simply guides for writing specific genres or styles of music. To create one, just start by picking 3 or 5 pieces of music that you think perfectly fit the type or style that you want to emulate. And then you analyze each of these pieces individually. For example, when I was creating my Skyrim template, I analyzed Awake, Secunda, Kind's Peace, The Streets of Whiterun, and Far Horizons. Then, to create the actual template itself, I studied the notes that I took on each of these individual pieces and just made a list of all the most important patterns that I found across the majority of the pieces. These patterns act as a list of common traits that help define the style you want to emulate, and they provide a foundation for the types of traits you should use if you want to benefit from the template. Some common examples of patterns that you may look for are the types of instruments that are being used, the types of layers and accompaniment that are being used, as well as the instruments that typically play each layer, the type of harmony that gets used, major, minor, modal, non-functional, things like that, average tempo, a typical key signature, or even, if you've got a good ear, the typical structure, AABA, ABAC, etc. Beyond patterns and common traits, you can also include any specific ideas that you thought were neat and want to try out for yourself. For example, maybe just one of the pieces you studied featured a solo piano, but none of the others did. If you liked it, feel free to include it in your template. Like I said, templates are meant to help you imitate a general sound that you like, and they don't need to be followed with 100% accuracy. Your goal should just be to discover a handful of helpful strategies or traits that can help you emulate a style while still leaving enough room for you to add your own twist. So, with that, we have reached the end of another video. I hope it was helpful. I want to take a quick moment to thank my wonderful patrons and channel members who make videos like this one possible. I appreciate each of you more than you know. If you'd like to help support future videos, please consider joining my Patreon, becoming a channel member, or purchasing any of the ebooks that are available on my website, tabletopcomposer.com. Thank you again for your support, and I'll see you all in the next video.